So, can you tell me how you're involved in the creative arts in the Tees area?
I'm a presenter for BBC Radio Tees. I'm freelance with them. I'm also an actress and a voiceover artist, and have done that for years and years and years.
Your voice does sound familiar. Is there anything
Oh.
I know you from?
I'm the voice of Greg's. so,
Amazing.
and lots of windows and doors company. I've been doing apparently because Teesside's one of the most trusted accents. So a lot of banking things they use people from Teesside, which is pretty cool because apparently you sound like you're really safe and that you're going to look after everyone's money. So yeah, it's quite positive. Yeah, I was lucky enough. I did a show for 4 years that was on CBBC, which is now on Netflix and the Disney Channel, which was called Wolf Blood. And then yeah, from that have had lots of different acting jobs, done a lot of Hollyoaks and just lots of random bits and bobs. So yeah.
Oh, amazing. I do. I've got two lads, so I do remember Wolf Blood. Apparently, for some reason, that was one thing that they'd never watch, and I thought they'd be really into.
Ah.
Might have to have another go at nudging them in that direction.
Give it a watch. Yeah, I've just had some lovely repeat fees in. So a lot of people are watching it at the minute, which is a real bonus. When that came in, I thought, oh, hello, silver lining. People obviously having more time at home and more time to watch old series. So that's been quite positive, really.
Brilliant. Well, in that case, you better tell us a little bit about it to some
Oh,
people to watch it.
it's a series that is all about teenagers trying to fit in mainly. However, a couple of the teenagers in the show have the power of turning into a wolf on a full moon. Not a werewolf, but a wolf. So they have the wolf's blood, and it's all about them, yeah, trying to fit in and be as normal as possible at school in a school setting, but also trying to hide this massive secret from all their friends. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, it definitely sounds like we need to give it another go.
Yeah, I'm not a very nice character though. I play one of the bullies, one of the like mean girls from school. So yeah, with a big fringe.
But you're making up for it these days.
Totally, yeah. I mean, I was 24 and pretending to be 14, so it was that you wouldn't get away with that now. Definitely not. They'd have to have someone a lot younger. But yeah, no, it was amazing. I was very lucky to be involved with that. Yeah.
Brilliant. So, how did you get into the creative arts? Do you come from a like arty family? Were you always engaged from a young age?
I'm not from a particularly arty family. I'm from a very working class family, and when I was younger, I asked to go to ballet lessons. And so my mum was like, okay, they've never sort of pushed me to do anything I didn't want to do. And then when I was at the ballet lessons, I got asked if I wanted to do singing, dancing, acting, little bits as a child in the panto. And then I wrote what I wanted to be when I grew up at school. And I wrote that I wanted to be a barmaid. And because of that, they asked my mum and dad if they could come in for a little bit of a chat about where that idea had come from. And I said I wanted to be like Raquel from The Rover's Return. And because of Coronation Street and seeing snippets of that, I knew I wanted to act. And then my school, I went to Normanby Primary, and I was really lucky that we had Darren Gamble and Bobby Jameson, who did so much in terms of performing arts. And we did Middlesbrough Little Theatre Festival. We did Shakespeare before we were even like 11 and 12. We did Shakespeare for Kids. We were always doing drama. And I did classes on a weekend at Middlesbrough Little Theatre, and then I got a scholarship to Stagecoach. So I was always kind of performing, and then I went to Stokesay sixth form, and my plan was to go to drama school. And when I looked at the affordability of it, it just wasn't going to be something that I was able to afford to do. And I think it was the last year of the Dada scheme. So I would have got some funding towards it. However, I think it was still about £12,000 a year just for the fees. Never going to happen. So I thought I'll go to university, I'll get a degree, and then as long as I get a first from that degree, I'll go and do a postgrad at drama school. So that was my plan, which I ended up doing. But then when I graduated, I decided I was going to go to drama school, and then I got my first professional work. And I had that real choice of, do I stay in the Northeast? Do I go to London? What do I do? And there wasn't really anybody to ask. because I didn't really know anybody who was particularly creative or who was from the same background. But I decided to make the choice that if there was paid work, I should take it, and I could defer for another year and see how things went. And luckily I went from job to job and I've never really looked back. And I think that was meant to be my journey. And I've been really fortunate to do the main amount of my work in the Northeast. And now, especially in Teesside, I moved back to Teesside 2.5 years ago. And I'm so lucky that now there's an emergence of, with Tees Valley Screen, that there's lots of things going on. And more recently being at BBC Tees has been fantastic, because I've got a little boy, I want to be here. I don't want to be going off to a film set and working for hours and hours on end and not seeing him. I'm fine to go off and do bits and bobs of Hollyoaks. But yeah, when, I didn't become a mum to not be in his life, and I'm a single mum, so it's important for me to be around to do the school pickups and drop-offs and things like that, yeah, but still be creative and still have that outlet for myself. So I have my own studio where I do my own voiceover work from home, which is great because that fits in really nicely around nursery and school.
Absolutely terrific. That's such a great story. Being excluded from following your dream at first through just not being in the right class or not having the right amount of money, and then outflanking the system that's there and just bypassing all that and getting straight into it and making a success without the need to go and be a fee paying school. That's absolutely tremendous.
Yeah.
And you see really together and having that focus and being able to stay in the Northeast.
Yay!
Yeah, it's like my mantra. Because I think it is really important. I think I've heard there's quite a lot of people that I've been speaking to who that have come back to Teesside, whether that's been intentionally or through like some kind of family crisis. But if it has been by chance, they've decided to stay here, and a lot of people currently at university thinking that they don't need to go elsewhere. And so that's one thing that I'm really hoping to contribute to in any way I can, just keeping the creators of Teesside in Teesside.
Yeah, because there is an emergency. Because I know because I moved back, my husband left me, so I moved back home to get some support from home. And I was very much like, I never really imagined myself coming back to Teesside, because I thought, right, Newcastle's where it's all happening. And even just coming back and, just meeting one or two people and then seeing how they were connected to others. And I'm so, so lucky. And actually, I find it's more exciting. Yes, there's a lot more going on because geographically Newcastle is bigger, but it's not that far away. But there's lots going on here. Like I'm doing some filming in the next 2 weeks and doing 2 separate filming projects that are happening in Teesside. And that's never been heard of before for me. So it's amazing. It's great.
It is, yeah. I mean, I know there's I always think I have a huge rosy picture of everything and everyone until shown otherwise. So I'm really excited about what's happening. I know it hasn't always been hard for a lot of people, particularly historically, to get funding in Teesside or to be able to put DIY projects together that make enough money to sustain themselves. So I'm kind of really excited to see all that. And I was just interested to think about your thoughts on the role that art in general plays in the lives of non-artists, or the way it can contribute to society, the way it can perhaps get Teesside to rethink itself and the stories that it tells about itself. I wondered what your thoughts were.
I think that's massive. It's really, really important. So when I started at BBC Tees, we have something called BBC Upload, which is where people submit their own content. It didn't really have a platform. It was just kind of put in between 9 and 10, one thing played. So that was something I was really passionate about, actually getting its own show and its own slot, which is what I've launched a month ago. And it's about using those voices in Teesside, not those that you specifically would know. So, I mean, next week we've got one that's going to be a football takeover. We've had people writing poems about last football season. And if that's a way to engage people, to make them be creative, then that's absolutely fantastic. I've got podcasts, I've got musicals that have been written and songs that are coming in. And, you know, people that aren't necessarily my age group, you know, there's a variety of ages, and it's so wonderful to be able to give them a platform to get that out there, because there's so much going on. People who aren't necessarily creative, I think even if they listened, then, you know, people have opinions on it and they get in touch with that. They'd say, I could never do that, but I think that's brilliant, and it's made me think of XYZ. And the first piece we ran was by Chloe Tempestoso, which was all about why I'm proud of my Middlesbrough accent. And that caused so much debate among people. So we kept running it throughout that week to see what people were saying about, you know, things we say when we're from Teesside. Because I remember being told by a tutor at college, like, don't tell anybody you're from Middlesbrough. Like, if you want to succeed, don't tell them that. And now I couldn't shout it more proudly. You know, I'm like, here I am, this is what we do. And that's why I think it's important to get that out there and approach people who maybe haven't ever tried anything creative. It's got such value, and it really frustrates and upsets me that, you know, sometimes that gets neglected and gets forgotten for other things. Like, I could not imagine my little boy growing up in a world where there isn't that level of arts and culture that I had when I was younger. You know, my mum and dad would say, would you like to go to the library and hear some stories, or would you like to go? I know at Christmas we used to go see the ballet, because it was something I absolutely loved to go and do, and I was really, really lucky that we had those things and those opportunities. And I've taken my little boy to go see theatre, and we'll play games, and I just think it's so important. And, you know, even if people might think of it as, you know, oh, it's got to be poetry, it's got to be flower, it's got to be this. Well, no, like, you know, we had a man on last night who said that actually the poetry gigs that they do are really raucous, and there's loads of beer drunk at them and things like that. And you think, yeah, there's a, you know, I think the idea of the reality of what it is in terms of what the expectation or what they think it might be, sometimes are so far apart, that, yeah, I think it's really important for our culture and for everyone to experience it. And I think everyone does, they just might not be as aware of it. You know, even going to see a comedian, that's a form of art in my opinion, because, you know, it's not something everybody could do. They get up there, they're performing, they're putting that out there.
Yeah, I only just found out in the last few months that, as far as the Arts Council is concerned, comedy just isn't on the map.
Forgotten.
Can't get any
Yeah.
funding for comedy at all, which
Completely
is
forgotten.
amazing. How much of the culture that we have, the lucrative culture,
Yeah.
the comedians that we have, like, you know, that start off, that, you know, they have to earn their keep and learn their craft pretty much by themselves.
Yeah, totally. And then they're the ones that we end up watching on TV when they get their own specials, or that we, you know, we listen to the podcasts. I did a piece last night with Carmel Ramsey from Big Mouth Comedy Club, because they're bringing comedy back this weekend, but they've had to reduce their capacity massively from like 300 people down to 84, just to be able to try and run a gig. But they're lucky because they hire out Middlesbrough Town Hall. If they had their own venue like the Stand, I mean, that's looking like, it's not looking so positive for them at the minute. And I think they're really quite forgotten about, and that must feel awful and heartbreaking for them when they put so much time and effort into that craft. I think that's where a lot of other people perhaps see a different side to the industry of the arts, and they think that you just do it as a hobby, and they think, all right, that's not sustainable, you can't make a living from that. And, you know, yes, you do have to have your fingers in all pies, as you know, as well as me doing acting and voiceover, I do radio, and I also do medical role play, because you've got to be able to, you know, be able to pay your mortgage or pay your bills and things like that. So, but I think to feel like your whole industry has been forgotten must just, yeah, really, really hurt, and not make you want to make jokes and be funny. It's not particularly inspiring, is it?
No, absolutely not. No. And yeah, coming back to what you were saying, it's I was arm myself with a couple of facts about the economy for anybody who kind of says that the creative arts is a hobby that you should do in your own time at your own expense.
Good.
Rip it from your soul. Is that I recently found out that it contributes, it's a bigger segment of our economy than agriculture.
Wow.
And also found out that it is bigger than automation, aviation, and the automobile industry combined. The three together. So all the car manufacturing, all the airplanes, all the automation combined doesn't contribute as much to our economy as the creative arts.
Well, what has everyone turned to during lockdown? What has saved everybody, you know, and what's got left behind?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, it's I've got to ask you the lockdown question before. Has it affected your work? Have you been able to carry on with radio? I suppose it's been a little bit easier.
Radio has been easier. I was supposed to be covering the breakfast show and starting doing a few little bits and bobs at BBC Tees. I've been very lucky that I was given my own show during lockdown, so that's been a real positive. It's different in terms of the schedule because normally presenters would do 2 hours or 3 hours, but we're at a 4-hour schedule at the minute, just to try and reduce capacity in the building, and you're not allowed 2 people on a show. It's just got to be the one person presenting. I was at Hollyoaks when lockdown happened. They cancelled all of the filming, and they also have changed the storyline, so my part no longer exists. So that's been taken. Some of the medical role play ended up going online, which was quite good, but they were quite nervous about that. And also we did end up doing an exam for stage 5 doctors. So they passed, anybody who was a clear pass, they passed and they went straight into the NHS early. Anybody who they weren't sure about, they did some exams. So I was part of the exam board for that. But in terms of the amount and the volume of work, I wouldn't normally just be doing one radio show a week. I'd be, my time would be completely jam-packed usually. It's starting to slowly come back. There's lots of whispers of things, there's lots of voiceover things happening. So I would say in the past sort of 3 or 4 weeks, it's started to get there, but it's not anywhere near the level that it used to be.
Well, let's hope we're finding our way back now.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, that's the plan, I hope.
It's been absolutely brilliant to speak to you. Lots of inspiration there, and I'm gonna get straight on the Twitter and have a look at
Yeah, definitely. Tinchy Strider versus the Chuckle Brothers. I mean,
what could go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong? Yeah, to me, to you, bruv. Definitely get your boys watching it. If they don't know who the Chuckle Brothers are as well, be like, guys, sit down. Never mind Wolfblood. Let's be watching this. This is genius. It's my friend who's moving house today, so I was like, I'm going to send a cheeky Chuckle Brothers gif. That'd be really funny. Just Googled it, and that came up, and I was like, this is gold. So you're welcome.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
No problem. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.